All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me okay. And thank you for being here, and thank you for your continued engagement and support of Roanoke City Public Schools. I know that this is a busy time of year, and I know that you could be anywhere else. So I just want to say thank you for choosing to be here with us tonight to talk about boundaries and attendance zones. So tonight we're here to not simply just to talk about boundaries, but to talk about also kind of informed and responsible decisions about the future of our schools, quite frankly, and decisions that are grounded in yes, in data, of course, but also in lived experiences, lived experiences when it comes to our students' lived experiences and our staff members as well. So we have a good problem facing us. Our families are continuing to choose Roanoke City Public Schools. When I came to Roanoke City 6 years ago, I was told time and time again to expect kind of a decline in enrollment, but we have not seen that come to fruition. Our families are continuing to choose Roanoke City Public Schools, and we're proud of that. And we know that it has everything to do with our people, programs, and the fantastic environments that we have. So again, thank you for choosing Roanoke City Public Schools. Now, again, something exciting on the horizon. We're opening the new Preston Park Elementary School. Yay. And we have a chance to address overcrowding as well at many of those surrounding schools that surround Preston Park Elementary School as well. And throughout our division, quite frankly, we'll be able to address overcrowding over a series of years. So the new Preston Park allows us to reduce overcrowding, again, not just at that school, but also in the surrounding school. So to do that, we must make some adjustments to our attendance zones, which means adjusting where some students go to school. And we know that that's why many of you are here tonight to talk about that. So as a parent, I just want to say that I do acknowledge the importance of this conversation tonight. I know that this is an important conversation to have, and I want to also reassure you that no matter the school we're talking about in Roanoke City Public Schools, we have great schools. And we have great schools because we have great people. We have fantastic educators, leaders, community members, parents, and students throughout our division, and we're proud of our schools. And so this work is not only about enrollment, it's also about facilities, it's about long-term planning, and it's about ensuring that every school has the resources and the space and the support that they need to thrive. And I want to take a moment to thank our school leaders, and I want to thank our school-based staff, especially this week. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. And so thank you. Hats off to our fantastic teachers and our educators throughout our division. You see, their dedication and commitment are a major reason why all of our schools throughout Roanoke City Public Schools are great places for our students to learn and grow, and we're grateful for everything that they do. Now, to support this work, we have partnered with Future Think, and they're bringing national expertise in enrollment planning and demographic analysis and long-range facility planning to ensure that our process is rigorous, that our process is transparent, and aligned with best practices. So you will hear shortly from our Chief Operations Officer, Chris Perkins, and representatives from Future Think about proposed attendance zone changes and the data behind them. So you will also have opportunities to share your feedback. So again, this moment is one of opportunity for all of us. These proposed adjustments will help us to rebalance enrollment so that our schools are not stretched beyond their capacity and that they also have room to grow. Again, because we're continuing to grow in Roanoke City Public Schools. These adjustments ensure that every student has access to well-resourced learning environments and that they help us make the most of every facility that we have. And they position us to serve our students well, not just this year, but in the years to come as well. You see, this is a multi-year effort. and it's often what I call legacy work. And so these are generational investments. Again, we're not just looking at the here and now, we're looking at years and decades to come. How do we build the structure and the foundation for the years to come that's sustainable? And so what we're doing tonight is the first step in that process. And you are a big part of that process. So again, I want to thank you for being here tonight. And we're going to walk hand in hand throughout this process, being thoughtful and intentional to do our best to have our students attend schools as close to their homes as possible, and that every decision that we make supports long-term stability for our community. So again, your voice is essential in this work. We encourage you to attend Wednesday's session. So if you have additional questions after tonight or additional concerns, we will have an in-person session on Wednesday. We also ask you to complete the survey that's available on our RCPS website. So again, if you can't make it on Wednesday, or if you think of something else after tonight's meeting tonight, just put it in the survey for us. We're going to read through every single one of those surveys. So please visit the website and complete that survey for us. And throughout tonight's meeting, please feel free to type questions that you have into the YouTube chat, which we are actively monitoring. And we're going to do our best to address as many questions as we can this evening. You might see us kind of looking down and getting some of the questions as they're coming in. And we're going to get to as many of those as we can this evening. So again, I just want to say thank you for your partnership. I want to say thank you for your honesty and your feedback, and for your commitment, and for being here tonight to support our students and our school. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Chief Operations Officer, Chris Perkins. So Mr. Perkins, I'll turn it over to you to share more. Oh, Mr. Perkins, you're muted.
Thank you, Dr. White. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get right into it so we don't waste everyone's time tonight. Okay, initially, the purpose for what we're here tonight to do is we want to make sure that we have the appropriate enrollment at Preston Park, and to relieve overcrowding at Monterey, and to create a balanced and sustainable system. In doing that, the outcomes we hope to achieve are, we want to minimize student movement and disruption, because we know that can be difficult for student and staff. So we want to make sure we minimize that, but we want to maintain a functional capacity for all of our schools at about 85 to 90%. And what that means is that student to teacher ratio that's required by the Virginia Department of Education. We want to make sure that our buildings have room to grow in all of our elementary schools. So this is a process, a long-term phased process for us to go through. And you may be asking yourself why. So I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. If you see here, Preston Park, this is an example of students learning in the hallway. And we know that is not conducive to learning, and which is why we wanted to build a new school for Preston Park. And this goes back to our capital improvement plan request in about 2021, but we were discussing that at least 3 years before that in 2018. Another example is Monterey. The reason we want to provide some relief from Monterey is, look at this classroom in this picture. That's a lot of students and we need to reduce that down to more manageable, not only for our teachers, but for the students to learn themselves. I want to also thank our Boundary Review Steering Committee. This is made up of school board members, division leadership, our data and analysis, our preschool, various disciplines that would be impacted by shifts in our attendance zones, along with parents, students, school-based staff, and our Roanoke Education Association representatives. Keep in mind that we will be providing a QR code at the end of the presentation for your feed. It's a feedback repository for us to receive information. So make sure that you pay attention and hopefully stay on long enough to get that QR code. Let's talk about our planning partners. One, we're very proud of the fact of RRMM Architects. When I tell a little bit about the history of this, you'll realize that RRMM has been instrumental in helping us, not just with this project, but our overcrowding in our high schools, and a lot of the work that we've done in other school projects around the division. And they've had a long-term relationship with FutureThink. They've partnered on several projects throughout the Commonwealth. But FutureThink brings their educational plan. It's an educational planning firm, but they bring expertise. In fact, they're celebrating their 20th year in business this month. So we're very lucky to have them work with us directly on this project. Their owner and president, Tracy Healy, is with us tonight. She'll be available if we have any questions pop up that are more technical and data oriented. She also works with Rick Stein and Tyler Spears. They provide our GIS mapping services and scenario development. And the Boundary Steering Committee actually worked through 5 scenarios so we could minimize that student disruption and staff disruption. FutureThink has worked with over 1,000 school districts across the country. So we're lucky to have them. A little bit of a history about how we got to this point. We've had 2 independent studies that started in actually 2022, but even back before that, when the superintendent first arrived in 2020, the school board at the time said it was time to look at our attendance zones. And the attendance zones had not had a major overhaul since 1971, when we were required to desegregate as a city based on court order. And when that happened, there's only been minor changes that occurred around 2009. And that occurred when the division closed some primary schools. We had 2 schools, Huff Lane, you may remember, and Oakland, that were primary. They only had K through 2 or 3, or K through 2. And then we had intermediate schools, Preston and Round Hill, that were 3 through 5. We also had closed 2 schools at that time, you may remember. We closed Forest Park Elementary, and we closed Riley Court Elementary and James Ruffner Middle School. So going back and looking at those attendance zones has been a long time need, and that was one of the requests from the school board of the superintendent. So move forward to 2022, we're coming out of the pandemic. We start the work, we start looking at what we need. We soon realized that we really needed a feasibility study where we looked at all of our buildings. So we sent out for a request for proposals, and we contracted with Spectrum Design. They provided us a comprehensive feasibility study for every facility we have in Roanoke City Public Schools. And they shared a lot of some of the recommendations, for instance, that our high schools are overcrowded, that we have overcrowding and underutilization of some of our elementary schools. And they provided us great input on how to address some of the educational inadequacies at some of the older schools. Keep in mind, the average school in the city of Roanoke is around 70 years old. So education, when most of our schools were built, it was not at the same as it is now, as when you have more modern changes, larger classrooms, more natural lighting, things like that. Moving forward, March 5th, 2026, our partners at FutureThink provided us with a very comprehensive enrollment projection and data on what we can expect. And what we realized from that is we're going to stay very stable at the high school level. We're going to have some minor reductions, looking at low, high, and a moderate projection. And overall, in our moderate projection, we're only expected to lose about 250 elementary students over time. So we're going to be relatively stable. So now's the time to really work on that. We presented to the school board multiple times, and at the most recent, we presented that we wanted to move forward, and we set up the committee, the Boundary Steering Committee, with the school board's approval. Right before that, they had also approved a phased plan. And in that phased plan for the years 2026 and 27, we wanted to address 4 schools and really balance the enrollment on the north side of our city. Remember, Preston Park as a brand new school that we're opening this fall. So that's really the driving motivator for why we start with Preston, because we've got a brand new beautiful school opening up that we want to make sure that we have the right enrollment when we open that school from day one. Monterey needs programming. Remember, Monterey is the only school in the division, the elementary school, that does not have a preschool program. And then Round Hill and West Side are over 700 students, and that's a lot of elementary students. We want to get those down below 700, closer to 600 students, to where it's much more manageable for administration and our staff. The second phase in the years 27 and 29 We want to look at 3 schools based on the feasibility study that were open campus style schools, and we want to make sure we have the right programming with some minor renovations to work in those schools, and then to balance those attendance zones because several or all of these 3 are really underutilized based on the space, but the space is not conducive to really movement now. So in phase 2, we're going to look at more programmatic and boundary changes together. And then in phase 3, we will rotate through to the south side of our city and relieve some of the crowding issue concerns at Crystal, Highland Park, Wasena, and Grandin. And so we think that phased approach is good. It gives people time to think and work on, and the committee time to review all of the different scenarios as we work with our experts. So what families should know and what you're really here tonight, and this is also for our staff so that everybody can hear kind of the recommendation. First, I've already said it, Preston Park is above functional capacity. They were at 110, 109% of their functional capacity. That creates overcrowding, and that's the immediate driving factor for the first step in phase 1. Monterey, as I said before, it's crowded, but it lacks space for preschool, and we need to have preschool at all of our division, all of the elementary schools in our division, just so we can provide programming for students in their neighborhood and their attendance zone to where we don't have to bus them across to other schools. Fallon Park is below its functional capacity, and real quick, Fallon Park is a beautiful, recently built school that we really need to get around that 85% functional use so that school is utilized and not underutilized. And then Lincoln Terrace and Round Hill provide some minor boundary adjustments for future school overcrowding measures. But remember, most of the changes that would be affecting Round Hill are going to come later in the phases as we talked about. Our student transition support is very important. We know that this can be tough on all of our families and our staff. So we want to make sure that we have orientation events, and we do a great job of this already at Roanoke City Public Schools. All of our administrators at our elementary schools, and all of our schools for that matter, provide a lot of opportunity for orientation. We'll have counselors, assistants, and we'll be communicating regularly to ease the reassigned students transition. Our academic and support services, like for our students with disabilities and our English learner programs, will continue without interruption. And as we look at the programmatic changes as we go through these phases, we may be able to align them better with the schools and the students in those schools for the services we can provide. And then family communication and stability. We want you to have updates and opportunities to ask questions, which is why we're doing this tonight and in person on Wednesday night, along with the feedback repository. And I want to say, I know busing has been difficult over the last several years for Roanoke City Public Schools, but the transportation changes will be minimal, but it will also help us improve and get back to those 2 bells as we move through this process, so we don't have this tiered system that we're working under now. So transition will impact based on address. And yes, we will be showing the addresses and the block numbers of those addresses that will be impacted as we change the boundaries in this recommendation. The schools that are primarily impacted, again, are Preston Park. The students you can see there transitioning out are 11. Students transitioning in are 124 for a net impact of an increase of 113 students in this brand new school so that enrollment is appropriate for the size of the school. Monterey, we're relieving them of their overcrowding. We're also providing opportunity for them to have preschool programming, and they'll have a net impact of a decrease in 89 students. Fallon Park, that new school that we recently completed in 2020 time period, will have a net impact of about 58 students transitioning into Fallon Park. Round Hill, for this portion of Round Hill's adjustment, there'll be about a decrease of 10 students at Round Hill. Remember, Round Hill is coming up later part of phase 1. And then Lincoln Terrace will have an increase of approximately 4 students. Now, I do want to provide a note here. Special transfers that have been approved by the division up to this point and programmatic transfers that have been approved by the division will be handled on a case-by-case situation. So don't get upset if you've had special permission for a transfer. We will work individually to make sure that we accommodate that your student and your family. And that goes along with programmatic transfers as well. So what are some questions that we want to answer up front that may help you if you're thinking about it now? So what is changing? The targeted boundary adjustments that we're recommending to relieve overcrowding at Preston Park and Monterey. The schools involved in that targeted boundary adjustments are Preston Park, Monterey, Fallon Park, Lincoln Terrace, and Round Hill on this first step. Will my child move schools? Overwhelming majority of students will stay in their already assigned school. Really, this has only affected about 9% of the total of about 2,600 students that attend these 5 schools. And so we're looking only about 9% that'll have some movement, but most will remain at their current school. When will the changes occur? If approved by the school board, after the opportunity for feedback, the implementation of this boundary change is tentatively planned for the 26-27 school year. How will our students be supported? I've mentioned this before. We'll have transition activities, we'll have counseling supports, and there'll be family communication. So we want to make sure we got your phone number and all the information correct in Synergy. So if you haven't updated Reese, make sure we have that updated information. That will help us communicate. How can parents ask questions? We're going to provide a dedicated survey and engagement opportunities through these 2 town halls, and then you'll get a QR code at the end that I hope some of you can scan so you can participate. Will my student have to move again since it is a phased plan? RCPS has plans to limit the elementary students to no more than 1 boundary change. Now, we know that all good plans have to be flexible, but we will make our very best effort that there will not be more than 1 change for your student. When will parents be notified of a change in school enrollment? So families will be directly notified after the school board votes on Tuesday, May 26th, if approved. Parents can anticipate a notification prior to the last day of school, which is June 4th. And that notification will look like it'll either be it will be all of the 3: letters, robocalls, and emails, making sure you have the opportunity to receive that information. When can you visit your new school if you are a student that is transitioning in your family? Open houses will be scheduled at each school site during the summer, and back to school nights will be scheduled prior to the opening of the 26-27 school year. Notifications about open houses and back to school nights include also through mail, email, and robocalls. And if you have questions after the end of school, but remember, this is not going to be approved, or we want to make sure we get plenty of feedback. But after that, after the end of school, Dr. Cindy Williams in the Department of Academics and Accountability, and her number is here, and we'll make sure that's available online, or if you just call the main number, we can get that information to you. So here's the recommended changes, and this is looking at the schools that are addressed in this first round. The pink is Round Hill for orientation. The lime green is Preston Park. Monterey is the pale yellow, and the teal color is Fallon Park. And then this light shade of lavender or pink between Fallon, where my cursor is now, is Lincoln Terrace. And here's a close-up view of those changes. So you have your current attendance and then the recommended change for Preston Park. And we will post these addresses in this green bordered by the red circle where the changes will take place. This is Preston Park is moving into the Monterey attendance zone and pulling from the streets that you see here in this map. Again, the streets will be on a slide later. For Round Hill, Lincoln Terrace, and Fallon Park, you can see here the current boundary for Monterey in this pale yellow comes down and touches Orange Avenue. Remember, these haven't been touched substantially since 1971. So you can see here that Lincoln Terrace will pick up in the pink border that goes north of Fallon and south of Monterey. And then Fallon will pick up also just a little tiny bit north of Fallon into Monterey. And then here we'll pick up west of the Monterey zone from Fallon Park's attendance zone. Now, I'm going to pause briefly so you can have the time to look at the impacted streets by block number. And you can see that they'll run through portions of those streets. And this is for your new school at Preston Park. These are the new addresses or block numbers. Until there's an approval, the attendance locator will not be working because we have to have a shapefile or data behind it to load into the system. And we're waiting on approval. And that's why that board approval on the 26th is important. The second part of Preston Park, excuse me, let me go back so I can pause there. This is the second group of number or addresses for Preston Park. That starts with Dorchester and runs through Grandview. Again, I want to emphasize for Preston Park, special transfers and programmatic transfers are going to be addressed on a case-by-case basis. All right, and I'll transition to Fallon Park now. These addresses, specifically from the Monterey attendance zone, will now be, the new school is recommended to be Fallon Park for these addresses from 11th Street through Monticello. And again, this is Lincoln Terrace. And again, these will be posted online for your review. They'll be available for review. And then we will have large posters of these at our in-person town hall. This is Lincoln Terrace. You can see the current schools and the new school Lincoln Terrace with these addresses. This is the second page of addresses that will be impacted, new school of Lincoln Terrace. And then finally, Round Hill. These are the addresses that will be impacted for Round Hill, and your current school is Preston Park, and they will pick up that small portion there. So again, a timeline for you, because I know that's important, and we want to know, when will I know? So this is the recommendation, the town hall tonight. The in-person town hall is May 6th. The feedback survey will open tonight. This is the QR code on the, as you're looking at the screen here, the right side. And that will stay open until May 18th for your feedback. On May 12th, we will have an update with the school board while the feedback is still being collected. And then we will compile, if there's any other feedback after May 12th, and provide that to the school board on the date that is scheduled for their vote based on the recommendation, which is May the 26th. All right, I'm going to leave it on this screen just a little longer for the QR code to make sure everybody has an opportunity. Okay, in summary, we want Preston Park to start with an appropriate enrollment on day one. Monterey, we want to relieve them of some overcrowding and increase their programming opportunities specifically for their preschool. And this is the first of several steps within 3 phases. You saw the years. We're running this out through 2031 to address a complete boundary review to help us for generations, as the superintendent said earlier. And we're available for questions. Be sure that if you're watching on YouTube to make sure you put your comment in the chat, and Dr. White will run through those questions, and we have our experts available to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the main screen.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And we do have a few questions here. And so the first one is, what data does RCPS have to show that some schools are over capacity? So I don't know if you want to take this or if you want Future Think to take it, but what data do we have that show that some schools are over capacity?
So we have to report to the Department of Education on September 30th and March 31st of each year. And that is our enrollment at each school. We know the square footage of each school. We know the size of each classroom. And so that data tells us what our enrollment is. That enrollment is actually posted on the VDOE website. We have it. It's available. It will be posted on our website to share. But That's how we know we're overcrowded. When we exceed the functional capacity based on DOE standards, we have undersized classrooms that we try to put more students in there, but that's where that data is, and that's how we collect that data. Keep in mind, there's three types of data also, so don't confuse it with. We report our data is based on pre-K through 12 plus, meaning we count everybody that's in that building. Our funding data, which VDOE uses in a funding formula to provide, where the state provides about 66%, the locality or the city of Roanoke provides about 33%, and then we have some federal monies that come in. That number does not include students with intensive service needs or preschool students, because that funding is different. So if you look up that number, there will be a difference in the two numbers. And then there's the Weldon Cooper's numbers, and those are projections that Weldon Cooper provides to the state. So don't confuse any of those. We use our real-time data, and we use point-in-time data to report to the Department of Education.
Thank you. And then the next question is, how is it decided kind of which streets or which blocks to change? And so that, you know, those options are there. So we talk about the kind of the mapping there of the streets and blocks, and how are they determined?
So I'm going to start this answer, and if some of our partners at FutureThink want to chime in. But the first thing that we look at is, of course, the geography. We want to maintain good diversity. Remember, we are still functioning under a desegregation ruling from 1971. We want to maintain that diversity. We want to have good geography to where, and we want to make sure that we have the number of students that helps us to right size that. So when you consider all those things, the demographics of those areas, FutureThink then goes in and runs the scenarios. Tracy or Tyler or Rick, you guys want to chime in if I missed anything there?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Healy, and happy to be part of this planning process with you all. Yes, as Mr. Perkins mentioned, there were several pieces of data and criteria that we looked at in adjusting the student attendance boundaries. And those really did include, you know, where students currently live and the schools that they were attending, and targeting the areas in which we saw the overcrowding and in some cases the underutilization, as was mentioned. And then looked at travel times and distances. So we wanted to make sure that we're still maintaining similar or if not better transportation times for parents and for students, and our bus routes. That was a key component. We also looked at, you know, the major impediments in terms of the crossings for the railroads, the road system. You know, getting in and around Round Hill is a little bit difficult based on its location. So again, we took all of those components into consideration as we looked at adjusting those boundaries, and again, also minimizing student movement as much as possible.
And of course, FutureThink, I will add, provided us projections going forward for the next 10 years, and that was considered as well.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you. And then there's another question here. Will other schools eventually have changes as well?
Yes. So FutureThink is working with us. So we are moving through our city and counterclockwise. If you're familiar with the city, we're starting in Northeast because that's where we've had the largest population enrollment increases. And then we're going to rotate through counterclockwise through Northwest, Southwest, and then into Southeast.
Very good. And I do want to remind everyone that if you continue to put your questions in the chat, we're going to ask them here. So just feel free to do that. The next question is, if we are unable to attend town hall on Wednesday, will there be another opportunity to tour the school? And the answer is yes. We know that we want you to feel comfortable. We want your students, your children to feel comfortable as well. So, Mr. Perkins, do you want to speak to that a bit? We're going to set up some other opportunities.
Yes, and we are trying our very best to have a tour Wednesday night, but I want to give a caveat. This is an active construction site. And the reason we're hoping we can do it is because we have a timeline to keep and we need to open this school on time. And I will say it's on time and under budget. So we're happy with that. But we will do our very best. We'll also have a virtual tour if we can't tour it on Wednesday night. But once the school is opened and we have the opportunity, we will provide tours at that school because it's going to be right now. You don't get a sense for how it looks with tables and chairs and other fixtures and equipment in the school. So there'll be lots of opportunity.
And Ms. Healy, I'll turn it back to you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with those who are viewing tonight about the process or anything else that you would like them to know tonight?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. White. Yeah, we went through a very rigorous process in terms of putting together, the initial data and looking at the, current conditions as well as future projections and with enrollment. So that was kind of our first step, and then compared that to the capacity Mr. Perkins mentioned with the functional capacity of each of the schools and how that what the current, again, condition was with that, where there was the overcrowding and underutilization in some areas, and then compared that to the projections as well. So we could see where those problems were being even further exacerbated. So we wanted to make sure, we met conditions for today as well as in the future, because as you mentioned, it's a long-term, decades in the work. So we worked initially with an administrative team, which was fantastic and kind of providing the data, giving us input, giving us, kind of the local flavor of what's happening and, kind of the anecdotal information that is also equally important as far as our data point sets. And then working then with the facilities committee, which Mr. Perkins mentioned at the beginning of all of those members, the parents, the students, the staff, everyone really had a chance to give feedback on those 5 initial scenarios that we worked through. And so that the scenario, that will be presented to the board next week is really, what everyone thought was the best situation, recognizing that moving boundaries and change is never easy, but again, what will really best meet the needs of students now and into the future.
Thank you for that, because the next question is really related to what you just said, and that is, if Preston Park has more students being added, will the new school become over capacity right away? So that you're speaking to, like, how do we project so that we're not, over capacity and facing kind of the same problem later on? So.
Yes, and again, we really wanted to hit in that 85 to 90% functional capacity. So again, there's room for future growth. There's room for the programming changes and really recognizing, kind of those class sizes as they shift. We have some bubbles working through. We have, different things. So we want to make sure that there is that, 10 to 15% that we can work with as needed.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Perkins, do you want to just talk about where Preston Park Elementary School is now in terms of, you talked about it being on time, but any updates on the new Preston Park and where we are construction-wise?
Yes, so we're doing all the work is inside. We've got work outside that's related to sidewalks, but that's a different subcontractor. We're also working on as soon as we end school. The old school will be turned over for demolition because that's where all the great fields and playgrounds are going to be. We'll be working through the demolition of that, and that actually will extend through the next year or so to finish that out to where we have our fields. We'll have 2 dual purpose fields, which we're going to be very proud of. We're going to have a beautiful walkway up to the school, really showcasing what a beautiful school that will be. We've got all the windows in. We've got starting to put in some of the storefront glass that really brings in the natural light for the school. So we're pretty excited about that. We're working on floors now. The virtual tour, if we can't do the real tour tomorrow, or Wednesday, excuse
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
we'll show like some of the casework in each classroom where the students will have individual locations for their coats and books and things like that. So.
And so, and that lends itself to the next question, is that what's going to happen to the current Preston Park building? And we know that there's a lot of rich history there. So I'm sure that's where that question's coming from.
So I will add, we have a time capsule that
We do.
so we're excited to open the time capsule for when that school was dedicated in 1952. We will open that at the dedication of this school when we cut the ribbon on the new school, and we will place a new time capsule with information from our current student body and staff at the school that we're dedicating. So.
And what we've done in the past also is to dedicate and to have some kind of bricks available from the existing school again. So even though we will need that space where the existing school is, we will do our best to honor the past as we look forward to the future as well. So thank you for that. And then this may be for you and or for Mr. McKee, and it says how many of these changes will impact teachers and staff. I'm not quite sure if we have a solid answer on that yet, but Mr. McKee, I'll turn it over to you. How many of these changes impact teachers and staff?
Thank you, Dr. White, and good evening, everyone. At this point, we don't know how many staff it's impacted until we have the final numbers of the students and who's moving from one school to Preston Park or another school and whatnot. But once we do get those final numbers, the plan is to communicate with the staff that is impacted in terms of if any staff has to move, make sure we make that phone call, make that personal contact with them, let their supervisor know. But the biggest thing is make sure as soon as we know which students are going where, that once the board votes, sometime around mid-June, we want to be able to reach out to the staff that it's impacted.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Perkins, and from Ms. Healy as well, if my student has attended and currently attends Preston Park, is there a chance that my student may be rezoned to another school if they're currently in Preston Park?
So if you go recall the slide that I had where students leaving, the 11 students that were leaving Preston Park are well outside of Preston Park's attendance zone. So they're either a special transfer or they're there for some type of programmatic transfer. And we will look at those individually, but we don't anticipate a lot of movement for students that are special transfers. And remember, it's only 11, so we have room in that school where we've got a cushion of anywhere from 15 to 10% for future growth. So 11 students, if all 11 were approved to stay out of those 11 we showed going out, we got plenty of room. And the other thing I want to add about this school, it's built in modern terms when it relates to education. If you go in a classroom at Preston Park now, that classroom is small. And these classrooms, when you get the opportunity to see it either through the virtual tour or real, they're huge. There's lots of room in these classrooms, and they're so different. You might, depending on your school, Highland Park's got some of the smallest classrooms in the district because it wasn't set up the way education is delivered now when those schools were built. So we've got large classrooms, lots of space. All of our special teachers and itinerant teachers will have a space. There'll be pull-out space. You don't have to go in the hallway, all of those things. So it's really a good situation.
And the next question that's coming in, maybe for our Chief Instructional Officer, it's about Mr. Freeman. And that is, what about our children who have an IEP and they do not do well with change? Will that be taken into consideration? And so, yes, we do have to take every situation, personalized situation individually. But Mr. Freeman, I'll let you speak to that.
Thank you, Dr. White, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Dr. White has already stated that it's true. We will be working with the list of students once it is finalized to ensure that we provide the services as needed, because we do know continuity is the key for our students with special needs. Dr. Pontius will make sure he will be working with the instructional supervisors to ensure that we provide that consistency for the students and that we provide for their needs. If they have targeted one-on-ones, we want to make sure we're still accommodating what is needed according to their IEP.
Yes, it really is IEP driven. And so thank you for that. And thank you for that question. All right. Let's see. The next question has to do with demolition. Could the building not be used for something? So again, we're going to need that space where the existing building is, correct, Mr. Perkins?
That is correct. We need space for our athletic fields. We worked with Parks and Rec. So there'll be recreation baseball and recreational softball and soccer, and these will be dual purpose fields. So we may even have the space for football as well. But we'll need space for those fields, and we'll need space for playgrounds. If you're familiar with Fallon Park now, it's going to be a very similar setup where you come up from the front of the school and the playground is on the walkway up to the school. So that's what we need that space for. Plus, we need a bus loop and we need a parent drop off, and we want those separated because that's the safest way is to have a separate parent and bus drop offs.
Yes, and then the next question has to do, well, it's a question, but it's also a comment, and it's saying that they're not necessarily for this because this person says that their son will be in 5th grade, so he will have to go to a new elementary school and then a new middle school, two new schools within 2 years. And we know that that's not ideal, but we also do know that when we've engaged in a boundary process before, it's not, and again, it may or may not be your student whom we're talking about, but we do know that some of our students will be impacted, and we do understand that change is always something that can be challenging. But we also know that that we do have caring teachers and staff members. We also know that many times when students move together, that helps as well, that they're not just alone, but they're developing friends and having new friend groups as well. And so that, yes, they will need to move when they go to middle school. And so then that's another friend group there as well. So we do take that seriously, and we hear you, and we're taking in that feedback as well. So thank you for sharing that with us. This says, with the addition of 100 plus students to Preston Park, what will be expected class sizes? Will staffing be adjusted accordingly? So Mr. McKee, our Chief Human Resources Officer, this is saying that will staffing be adjusted since there will be more students at Preston Park?
Yes, staffing will be adjusted when the students will be added to Preston Park. Keep in mind, we still want to stay within the class sizes in terms of K through 3 for federal identified as federal funding. So we're still want to stay within that range. But yes, classroom sizes will be adjusted and staffing will be adjusted once we get the final numbers of the students that will be enrolled at Preston Park.
Very good.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all the questions. I believe I'm looking to make sure I'm looking at everyone who's helping field all the questions and get them all in today. And again, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Perkins. Thank you to Future Think for your partnership. Thank you to RRMM for your partnership as well. And thank you to all of our parents and staff members, community members who have taken the time to join us here this evening. We do appreciate your engagement and involvement, and we'll take every question and comment that you have into consideration as we make our presentations to our school board. And again, we will have an in-person meeting on Wednesday as well. So then you have an opportunity to come out on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll be able to take a tour, but if not, we'll at least be able to have a virtual tour, right, Mr. Perkins? We'll at least be able to have a virtual tour for everyone there, even if it's physically not safe, that we can't do it. But if that's the case, then we will have a virtual tour. Keep in mind that, Mr. Perkins, can we go back to the last slide? Let's put up that QR code again and the timeline so that everyone has that available. Let's see, can you share your screen?
I'm doing it. Let me pull it up here.
And we do encourage everyone to, again, complete the survey. so that we have not just the quantitative data, but we also have the qualitative data as well. We're getting in your feedback, and so that we can have a full perspective, everybody's perspectives. And I always say perspectives matter. So we need to consider everybody's viewpoint as we engage in this new opportunity before us to make sure that we have spaces that are more conducive to learning and growing along the way. So you have the important dates there, and you also have the QR code for additional information. Keep in mind that many of our school board presentations where we've taken a deeper dive into the data are also available. They were live streamed as well, and so those are also available on our website. So again, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, and have a good evening, everyone.